There's a lot of questions surrounding the Cleveland Browns this week and certainly in Saturday's playoff game against the Texans. We try to get some of the answers to them now on your latest Locked On Browns live.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate each and every one of you that make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And if you are not part of the everyday crowd by now, we ain't got to be coy, Roy. Just listen to me. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. It's Monday. Obviously, Cleveland Browns is going to be a short week. We're going to start to get a lot of answers to these questions starting Tuesday, but there are a lot of burning questions right now involving the Cleveland Browns through this week in practice. Certainly how the game will unfold Saturday in Houston. We got some from the offense. We certainly have some from the defense, special teams. There's obviously a big question as far as, master versus the rookie quarterback for the offensive side of the ball. Now, Joe Flacco, and obviously this has been a miraculous run for Joe, comes in November, finally gets the ball week of the Los Angeles Rams. And if everybody remembers, obviously had that transition from the Denver Bronco game where Dorian Thompson-Robinson was really starting to put it together. DTR takes that monster hit. The game closes in the hands of PJ Walker and it all crumbles like a card house. So in the following week, the move, much anticipated move, everybody felt it was going to work that way, even if it was DTR or not. But I still say, and the everydayers know, DTR never left that Denver game. I think the Browns would have won that game. But you get to the Ram game, and now it's Joe Flacco. And right from the first drive, bing, 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 darts, ropes all over the place, leads to the Jerome Ford touchdown. And you kind of had an idea that this was going to be Joe Flacco's team for the rest of the 2023 season. Browns obviously come up shorthanded that week. Difficult spot for them, of course. Then you get the 4 in a row. You get Jacksonville at home. You get the Bears at home. Christmas Eve, you go down to Houston. Just absolutely whitewash the Texans secondary with Amari Cooper. Just straight up abuse them. Then you come home, short rest right after Christmas, Thursday night game. Joe again, fantastic, 300 yards in the victory over the New York Jets, securing the Browns playoff berth. Now you're able to sit Joe and so many key players. These players will have sat from that Thursday night game to the following Thursday, and in 2 more days. So you're talking Browns probably getting about majority of these guys getting 16 days of rest going into this playoff game. Really, really, hopefully good spot for this Cleveland Browns team. And Joe, he's kind of grown into it and, gotten better each week as he's gotten more comfortable. He's able to obviously have a great relationship, with Coop and Njoku. We're going to get to them, of course. Elijah Moore started to get much more involved, and Elijah was the only one that really had a relationship with Joe Flacco by the time Joe got here. But Joe with rest, obviously Joe Flacco 5-0 in the wild card round in the playoffs. Looking for Joe Flacco to obviously step up here Saturday and kind of set the tone for this team and hopefully what will be a promising playoff run. The run, we keep saying run, the rebirth of the running game. This would be a huge thing. Obviously, the Browns were able to get the running game going again against the New York Jets. Something I personally didn't see coming. And against the defense that I think they just finished 3rd overall in defense. Talk about a wasted season for a defense. Oh my God, the Jets. But the Browns were able to get the run game going again that week. You're not going to take anything out of yesterday's game. Of course, the way that offensive line was done, of course, backup right guard, backup center, backup left guard. But you're hoping that Jet game it's at least going to be a sign that the Browns can maybe try to get something going here. And you put that into the fact that, you have, and I've talked about this rest, obviously just before, Wyatt Teller with the rest, Ethan Posick with the rest, Joe Bitonio with the rest, Jerome Ford mostly with the rest, Kareem Hunt, maybe he'll be a little bit fresher here. Can between the rest of the offensive line and the last time this offensive line played with their backs, had a successful running game. Can that something that be continues here in the playoffs? Certainly in Houston is something that they can hold on to. It'll just help the play action game even more. Obviously keeping the defense on their toes with the threat of the run could be very, very vital, could be very, very crucial for this Cleveland Browns team through the playoffs here. Look, obviously we know week 1 you're going to be in Houston. Weather will not be a factor. But certainly week 2 of the playoffs, which most likely could be a road game, there is some odds and ends and crazy way that it could work out. The Browns do get to host a playoff game, but you could be going to Baltimore, could be going to Kansas City. So, heck, and it could be even a weird circular route, maybe somehow, some way where you end up going to Buffalo, who knows. But to be able to have that running game and be able to have the ability to run the ball is something that I know Kevin Stefanski, certainly Bill Callahan, certainly Alex Van Pelt, the Browns would like to be able to find a way to incorporate that running game back in. David Njoku and Amari Cooper, obviously it's been a long, long sit. Amari, it's going to be even longer. His last game would have been Christmas Eve against the Texans. He will be back on Saturday for his first action, which will be over 3 weeks for Amari. Can he continue to play like he was playing, before the heel injury, before missing the Thursday night game? And it's not even so much that Amari's got to go out there and, give you another 200 yards. I mean, obviously that, that performance within itself is just, it's hard to even think that could be replicated, duplicated. But if Amari can go out there and put the threat into the Texans secondary, then that continues to make lives easier for everybody else. David Njoku has just been a beast here since Joe got here. Obviously, the ability to throw the ball vertically and everything that David can do underneath has just been a tremendous, tremendous asset for this team. And for Chief, it's been able to show everything that he's capable of. Over 80 receptions, close to 900 yards this season. Because that's something that can continue for this team. Cedric Tillman. And I see people getting on Cedric Tillman, which I think is really, really difficult. This is a rookie wide receiver that played with 5 different quarterbacks this year, and week in, week out, it was a different quarterback. So, and I'm always critical, and wide receiver will always be the position that I am, always most critical of. Familiarity with the position. But for Cedric Tillman, it's really, really tough to achieve greatness, when you have so much uncertainty of the quarterback position. But the one thing this team would miss if they did not have Cedric Tillman, and maybe his snaps would be limited because, he hasn't always jived with every quarterback. Cedric Tillman was doing a hell of a job blocking. That is something that the Cleveland Browns would miss if Cedric Tillman was unable to go Saturday in Houston. Luckily for the Browns, David Bell had a really, really nice showing yesterday in Cincinnati. I'm Jeff Lloyd. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Don't go anywhere. The NFL regular season has wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. This is the way to find the most popular parlays that are being wagered, many, many more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We continue on here, your latest Locked On Browns. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, as you all know, now my 7th season with you all here, Locked On Browns. We've had some really, really bad days. We've had some really, really good days. And one day we're all going to sit down and tell our younger generation all about 2023. But I appreciate all of you who make the show your first listen. And if you're not part of the everyday crowd by now, we'll make a new plan. Stay and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show's always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we switch it up here and we try to talk about maybe some of the questions here on the defensive side of the ball. I think first and foremost, one of the biggest questions, and obviously with the Browns with no availability on Monday, Monday is their off day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, your practice days, maybe a walkthrough on Friday, get on a plane, get to Houston, get ready to go for 4:30 in Houston on Saturday. But one of the biggest questions is Grant Delpit. His 4 weeks is up. Grant Delpit is eligible to return to practice this week, would be eligible to return off from IR to play Saturday in Houston. Grant Delpit is a Texas kid. So, a lot riding on this. I'm not saying it's make or break if Grant Delpit is unable to go this week. But, this guy, and it's always such a, what have you done for me lately business, the NFL. And, there was a time up until Grant Delpit got injured, where Grant Delpit and JOK were neck and neck as far as who's going to end up being the leading tackler for this team in 2023. I think JOK finished about 101 tackles. Grant Delpit finished at 80. You equate in those 4 games Grant missed. And obviously you can see that Grant, JOK certainly would have been continuing that battle all the way up until the end of the regular season. Pro Bowl nominations for Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit contract extension. All of this, for number 22 in his 4th season, everything's starting to come together here. We all know it was the rookie year. It was washed away by the Achilles. Year 2, slow start, understandable. Obviously, he's getting comfortable to taking NFL reps, getting comfortable with his Achilles again, and then closes the season strong. Year 3 for Grant Delpit, same type of thing. Slow start, finished extremely strong. Year 4 started like a monster and a rock star. And then obviously, dinged up. And, here in year 4, right after the contract extension, the injury comes. So a very, very hot start to 23 for Grant Delpit, but obviously a quiet finish as he spent the last 4 weeks of the regular season on injured reserve. With the birth of Ronnie Hickman and, Ronnie Hickman to be able to play some deep safety, some high safety. This is what you brought Juan Thornhill here to do. We've always talked, and I thought Grant Delpit, and look, Grant can do a lot of things. Playing a high safety is not really his best attribute. He certainly can make a ton more difference down in the box, covering tight ends, covering running backs. And this is something you can kind of consistently do here. If I'm the Browns, I look at this, going further on down the line. My nickel package, and it's not a knock. I like Sione Takitaki. I want Sione Takitaki re-signed. But you're telling me I can go with a nickel package of whatever 4 defensive linemen I choose. My nickel linebackers to be JOK and Grant Delpit. I can use Hickman. I can use Thornhill as high safeties. And then I can play my cornerback trio, which really, really looks promising for this team. Grant Delpit is a special, special talent. Obviously played in some really, really big games in his time down at LSU and, missed out on the first playoff run. And for Grant Delpit, you've been here 4 years now. You've been part of this Barry Stefanski regime the entire time. And Grant Delpit is yet to be a part of the playoffs. Obviously kind of had his eyes on that this year until the injury took him out. So this would be a big, big time to get Grant Delpit back. Obviously, 100%. Not sure. Is anybody 100% this time of year? But this is one of the biggest news stories I'm looking for starting Tuesday and as the week goes on. Is Grant Delpit the window opened to return to practice and possibly be elevated off of IR onto the 53-man roster for Saturday in Houston? Then if he is, how much of a contributor can he be? Because this safety room, when it started in the season with Thornhill, McLeod, and obviously Grant Delpit, it was a fantastic group. And then one by one, everybody slowly started exiting. Juan Thornhill, of course, missed a bunch of time. Rodney McLeod had his season come to an end with a bacterial injury. Grant Delpit signs the contract, plays the game, and the next thing you know, Grant Delpit is dinged up and Grant Delpit's out for a while. D'Anthony Bell, fantastic job stepping in. Certainly a fantastic job from Ronnie Hickman stepping in. You bring in the veteran Duron Harmon. He has done a solid job for this team coming in late here as well. But getting number 22 back, a guy who is going to be here for a long time with the Cleveland Browns, you would really, really like to see Grant Delpit get the opportunity to get into this playoff run, miss the first one as a rookie, but to be able to get this one now where he's kind of like big man on campus. This is certainly something I am looking forward to and waiting to hear more on as this week goes on. Myles Garrett obviously has been the straw that has stirred the drink for the Cleveland Browns defense this entire season. What he and these other guys have been able to do with their pass rushing abilities, and you hear it every time the corners talk, every time the safeties talk, they're making our job that easy. They're making our lives so easy. And that's what you listen to these defensive backs play, because these defensive linemen are just getting after it. Crazy, crazy production, crazy effort, getting quarterbacks off their timing, getting them off their rhythm, getting them off their spot, getting them out of the pocket, forcing them to step up in the pocket. It has been a show. So with Miles, the key now, 91 Alex Wright. It has been 4 straight weeks for Alex Wright with a sack, 5 overall, 22 years old, really starting to blossom and become really comfortable into who he is, into his body, and just where he fits into an NFL defensive line. As we all know, this was a guy at UAB who played inside, he played outside. UAB used him the best way they needed him. They didn't necessarily do what was the best thing for Alex Wright. Now, here in year 2, and he was a strong contributor in year 1. Year 1, it was more of an assignment-driven player, set the edge, da-da-da-da-da. Not anymore. Alex Wright is starting to really put it all together in all phases. Strong run player, 5 total tackles yesterday. Strong pass rusher, 4 straight games with a sack. You're really starting to see the evolution of a player here. Zadarius Smith is a player that I had actually said probably about 5-6 weeks ago was somebody that really needed to start pick up his play for this team. And he has. The first game in Houston, Christmas Eve, Zadarius Smith had 2 sacks. For Zadarius, and he's always a player that's down. And you almost wonder if there's a little veteran savvy to it. Like, hey, all right, this has been a long drive. Let me lay down here for a minute. Let the trainers come out. I'll jog off the field. I'll sit out a couple of plays, get our defense, basically a not timeout, but timeout type of thing. But Zadarius Smith and those two, and obviously Ogbonnaya, Okoronkwo, kind of hard to truly evaluate what he was yesterday, but came through the game yesterday unscathed. And now for him, obviously, big opportunity here. Gets to go back to Houston where he was last year. Obviously, gets to continue with his efforts of trying to get this team and hopefully get himself back to another Super Bowl, try to get another Super Bowl ring. But now you're in a thing here with Ogbo where he doesn't necessarily have to be the second or third defensive end. He can maybe be the third or he can be the fourth. So good advantage here. And, hopefully for Ogbo, gutting it out, can continue to get through this run. There is the factor here for this Browns defense. There's a lot of guys that have not played in the playoffs before. Prominent players, Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, certainly Ronnie Hickman. There's players on this defense, Alex Wright would be another one, certainly, who have not had the opportunity to play in a playoff game. So, I'm not saying there's going to be jitters, but, there is something to talk about. These guys have not, gotten this opportunity yet. I'm not saying like a rookie wall or any of this, but, the stakes are higher. One tiny miscue in a playoff game can derail the entire postseason. You can get away with a miscue in week 3, week 5, week 7. It don't work this way in the playoffs. It's one and done. So one miscue, one ill-timed penalty, one big mistake could be all the difference in a win or a loss here in a playoff game, and obviously ultimately ending what has been a magical 2023 season. All questions, all things to keep your eyes on. We got more to go here. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. I appreciate every one of you for sticking along for the ride. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection, and you can watch your winnings roll in. You want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. As the week goes on, I will get you a PrizePicks lineup for you guys all to play Saturday during the game. So make sure you stick around and look out for that in future episodes. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Jeff Lloyd, we're going to close it out here. Your latest Locked On Browns. And of course, I appreciate y'all who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And if you are not part of the everyday crowd by now, you don't need to know nobody. You don't need a promo code. Just subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show's always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. One thing that we haven't heard a bunch of, and I'm not sure if we're even going to possibly get this news this week, would be is Dustin Hopkins even a possibility for this week? What he did for this team, crucial game-winning field goals, back-to-back weeks at Baltimore, home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A move at the time, when everybody criticizing them, you Cade York, and you traded a pick for a kicker. Yeah. Ain't nobody questioning that move for Dustin Hopkins now. He was one of the most integral players to the 2023 success of this team than anybody. Dustin Hopkins flat out got it done week in, week out. You go back to that Raven game, and everybody, if you remember, it was a Greg Newsome pick six to the house. Dustin Hopkins missed the subsequent extra point, making it a 24-23 game. As he went to the sidelines, Myles Garrett, all the top players on his team, everybody, a little pump to the chest. You're going to get another opportunity. We're going to get you another opportunity. They got him that opportunity. And Dustin Hopkins sent the Baltimore fans home that day a little salty. And it wasn't from the Crabs. It wasn't from the piss beer down in Baltimore. It was from the loss they took to the Cleveland Browns. So we'll see. And this is going to be another thing that we're going to look forward here to this week. Obviously starting Tuesday, once business opens back up in Berea, Dustin Hopkins, is it a possibility? Isn't it? Is or isn't a possibility. One thing that may factor into this and certainly could help him is this game will not be played outside. Obviously the temperature will be controlled. It's not like he's going to have to go stand on a sideline in a 10-degree temperature, which could be the case in Buffalo this weekend, could be the case in Kansas City this weekend. It's a controlled environment. So, maybe it's a chance that Dustin Hopkins can kick in this game. Riley Patterson, it's not a knock on Riley Patterson. We barely got to know you. And no offense, I don't really want to get to know you. I'd rather have my kicker back in Dustin Hopkins. And for a guy that has been such an integral part to this team the entire season, you would really hope that you would be able to roll with Dustin Hopkins here Saturday in this big, big game. We know Dustin Hopkins can kick a pressure kick when it matters. We have not seen Riley Patterson in that opportunity yet. So if I have the chance, I really, really would like to have Dustin Hopkins back kicking for the Cleveland Browns Saturday in Houston. And this is one that will not come down, obviously, until we see the game on Saturday. And look, I understand the affinity and the respect for CJ Stroud. Obviously, so many Cleveland Browns fans, your college football affiliation is usually to Ohio State. And look, I am a big CJ Stroud fan. And if you remember, you go back to the Saturday when they had the quarterback workout, I had Pete Smith on. We talked about CJ Stroud, and he was in the group with Anthony Richardson. If you remember, Young didn't throw. Our boy DTR did throw. All eyes were on Anthony Richardson that day. Nobody was really talking about CJ Stroud. He went out in that workout, and he wowed. You saw the accuracy. You saw the ball location, up, low. He really has some special arm talent. He knows where to get the ball to his guys. CJ Stroud is a very, very good quarterback. CJ Stroud is going to be a great quarterback. And I pray, with playing him twice here this year, Browns ain't got to see him anytime soon. I'm going to be honest with you. But you brought in this czar of a defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is supposed to be like the kryptonite to a rookie quarterback in his first playoff game. And the Browns, it obviously was a little different. We don't really know what the defensive game plan would have been because we didn't see CJ Stroud the first time. Obviously, it was Case Keenum. It was Davis Mills. But if you think about Jim Schwartz and who he is and who he has been, basically what his calling card and his MO is as a defensive coordinator, he is going to pressure the living daylights out of CJ Stroud. That is my honest belief. He is going to go after this young man all day and all early evening in Houston because he's going to tell this kid, you've got to beat me. And as you heard John Costco talk on our last episode, one of the issues for CJ Stroud was the big moment. And look, he kind of shook that off a little bit, obviously Saturday night against the Colts, earlier in the season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think CJ Stroud's going to go on to great things. I really do. But Jim Schwartz is going to throw everything at him. And if CJ Stroud got to see the Browns once already, I think this would maybe be a different tale. But I think, that it's going to be tough for CJ Stroud with Jim Schwartz and everything that he is going to attempt to take away and just frustrate and pressure the living daylights out of this young man. We got to a bunch here. We've already done a post-game show this week. We got John Costco on. Of course, here we did burning questions for the week. We're going to get an episode with Jared Mueller. We're going to get an episode with Pete Smith. So make sure you are tuned in to Locked On Browns all week long. I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.